Hey guys, welcome to Coding in Flow. In this tutorial we will learn how to use the JobIntentService class in Android. The JobIntentService combines two different types of services, the IntentService and the JobService. But why is this necessary? Since Android Oreo or API level 26 we can't keep normal services running in the background anymore, because the system will kill them after around 1 minute, or even throw an exception if we try to start the service while our app itself is in the background. This happens to save system resources and don't use up the device's battery so quickly. The IntentService is just a subclass of the normal service that executes all the incoming work sequentially on a background thread, and when it's finished executing all the work it automatically stops itself. And as a service it is also affected by these background execution limits. Now, one way to circumvent these restrictions is to promote the IntentService to a foreground service on Oreo onwards, which is what we do in my IntentService video. You can find this video when you click on the little eye in the top right corner. By promoting the IntentService to the foreground, we can keep it running pretty much without any restrictions. But this also means that we have to display a persistent notification that stays there for the whole duration that the service is running, which is really intrusive. But this is supposed to show the user that there is something going on in the background. You should only use this approach if your service really must get executed immediately and without any interruptions. In most cases you should now use the JobIntentService instead, which uses a different approach. On pre-Oreo devices, which is API level 25 and lower, it starts a normal IntentService because there we don't have these restrictions. On Oreo onwards, it uses the JobScheduler instead to achieve a similar behavior as the IntentService. It starts the work as soon as possible, it executes all the incoming intent sequentially one after another on a background thread, and when it's finished processing all the work it automatically stops itself. I have a separate video on the JobScheduler which you can also find in the top right corner. But most of the stuff we configure there manually is handled internally in the JobIntentService, so it's not quite the same. These scheduled jobs are a bit more reluctant than normal services, and they are also more likely to get deferred and interrupted in low memory situations, when the device falls into those, or simply because they have been running for too long. But they also save system resources, they don't need an ongoing notification like a foreground service, and when they get interrupted they start again at a later time with the same work we sent there. So if you previously used intent services in your app, then you should most likely convert them to a JobIntentServices. So let's see how we can create and run such a JobIntentService. For this I created a new Android Studio project and I've already made some preparations. I have already created this layout with an edit text field and a button. I have assigned this edit text field in our main activity with findViewById, and when we click our button we call this method here, which right now is empty. If you want you can pause the video and type it out, but I will also put a link to the code of this example into the description box below. And when we start our JobIntentService we can send data to it, and this is what we will use this edit text field for. In a real app you would send data there that you actually use to process background work, like a URL for example. But since we faked the background work in this video we will just send some user input there. So now let's create our JobIntentService class. For this we go into our package. We right click on our package and create a new Java class. I'm gonna call it example JobIntentService, and it has to extend JobIntentService, this one here. We don't change anything else and click OK. We immediately get a warning because we have to implement one method, so we click on this line, then we click on the little red light bulb, implement methods. Here we keep onHandleWork selected and click OK. onHandleWork is the equivalent to onHandleIntent in the normal IntentService. But before we fill this method, we will create one constant. We write PRSF, enter, which is a live template for a private static final, string, we call it tag equals, and here we use our class name in form of a string. Since we just do some fake background work, we will use log messages to see that everything is working properly. And that's what this tag is for. Okay, back into our onHandleWork method. This is where we do our background work. And the same as in an IntentService, this method will be executed sequentially for each intent we send over. First of all, when this method starts, we will show a log message, so we type logd. It automatically inserts our tag, and it will simply say onHandleWork, so we can see that this is executed. And over this intent we can send data to our service when we start it. In our case this will be our input string from the edit text field, and we get it with intent dot get string extra, and then we have to pass a name, which will be input extra. Later, when we start the service from our main activity, we have to use the same key to send our input over, and this is how we read it out of this intent. Then we will simulate work simply by freezing this thread for a couple seconds. So we create a for I loop by typing in for I, which is another live template, enter. We press tab and type in 10. We will go through this loop for 10 rounds. And in each round we will show a log message again, but this time it will be the input string we send over. Then we append a string with a minus like this, and I, which is the current round. Then we simply call system_clock.sleep to freeze this thread for 1000 milliseconds, or 1 second. This method will run in both cases, when it's executed as an intent service and when it's executed as a job service. And in both cases it will run on a background thread automatically, without us having to create our own thread. Okay, and the same as in a normal service, we can override onCreate and onDestroy. But we won't do anything in here besides showing another log message, onCreate and onDestroy. In the IntentService video we acquired a wake log in onCreate to keep the CPU of the device running even if the screen is turned off. The JobIntentService takes care of this automatically, so we don't have to do this. Again, in both cases, as a normal intent service and as a job service, the wake log will be held automatically. And there is another method we can override, which is onStopCurrentWork. And this method will be triggered when the current job has been stopped if it's using the JobScheduler, so on API level 26 onwards. This happens, for example, when the device is under strong memory pressure, when it falls into DOS, or simply when it has been running too long, because jobs have a time limit, which is around 10 minutes. After that they will get stopped and deferred, and the return value is a boolean, which defines if we want to resume our work later or just drop it. The default value of the superclass implementation is true, which means that if this job had to be stopped, it will later start again with the same intent it was processing, so nothing gets lost. If we return false here, the current intent and all following intents will be dropped, so the job is basically cancelled. So in most cases you want to keep the default value, which is true, and I will put a log message in here as well. Even though I won't trigger this method in this video, but if you want to experiment with it, you can see when this method is actually triggered. Now when the job has been stopped, it doesn't automatically stop executing the onHandleWork method. We actually have to take care of this ourselves. If we don't stop this method from executing, the system will just kill our service. So it's probably better to stop it in a controlled manner on our own terms, and the job will also release the wake log after it has been stopped, which could lead it to a misbehave. So after the job was stopped, we should stop our onHandleWork method as well. And if you have watched my job service video, then you will probably remember that we used a boolean variable there to figure out if we should stop our work. And here we do the same in the for loop, but we don't have to create our own boolean variable. Instead we have this isStop method, which returns true if the job had been stopped and ran through onStopCurrentWork. And if this is true, we know that we should stop our work. In this case, we will simply leave this method by calling return. But if we return true in onStopCurrentWork, the job will run again at a later time with the same intent, so we can resume from there. Okay, nice, and we are almost done. To actually start a service, we have a static method available, which is called NQWork, where we have to pass a context, the name of the JobIntentService class, a unique job ID, and the intent we use to start it. Now we already know the class name. It is of course our example JobIntentService class. And the job ID has to be the same for all the intents we send to the service. So these two values are fixed. And for this reason, instead of calling this NQWork method from the main activity later, we wrap it into our own method. So we don't put this in onCreate, this was just to show you the method. Outside of onCreate, in this class we write static void, and we call it the same, NQWork. But here we only pass a context and the intent, which we call work. And from this method we will call the NQWork method you just saw a moment before, where we forward our context. For the class we hardcode example JobIntentService.class. We also hardcode the job ID, for example 1 to 3, and the intent is the work intent we sent over. And then we simply call this NQWork method from wherever we want to start our JobIntentService. In this case it's from our main activity, so let's switch over to our main activity Java file. In our NQWork button method, we first want to get the input from the edit text, so we create a string input equals edit text input get text to string. Then we have to create an intent. Let's call it service intent equals new intent. Here we pass this for the context and the class we want to start, which of course is our example JobIntentService dot class. Then to send our input over, we take the service intent variable called .putExtra, and here we pass the same string key as we defined before, which was inputExtra, and our input string as the actual value. And then we use our static NQWork method. So we write example JobIntentService with capital E. Since it's a static method, we call it on the class directly, dot NQWork, and then we simply pass a context, this, and our service intent. And if you have watched my JobScheduler video, then you know that we did a lot of configuration there. We defined specifically under which circumstances we wanted to start our job. For example, when we have Wi-Fi connection or when the device is currently charging. But with a JobIntentService we can't set these constraints. Instead it will basically just start as soon as possible, because the point of the JobIntentService is to mimic the behavior of the normal intent service. If you want to set these constraints, like Wi-Fi connection, then the JobIntentService is not the correct class to use here. And here we are already done for our main activity. Lastly, we go into our AndroidManifest.xml file, where we have to add a permission at the top. Opening angle bracket uses permission, and we need a wake log permission. Because as I said, the system will automatically keep the wake log for us, but on API level 25 and lower we need this permission, the same as we needed it in our IntentService video. And then we have to register our service. We do this below this activity closing tag, opening angle bracket service, example JobIntentService, and then important, we have to add a permission here. So before we close this tag in a new line, we write Android :permission, and here we pass Android dot permission dot, and in capital letters, bind underscore job underscore service. And then we close this with a slash and a closing angle bracket. This is the job service permission, which the job scheduler needs. And since our JobIntentService runs as a job service on API level 26 and higher, we need a job service permission. Otherwise you will get a crash on Oreo onwards. But now we are done, so let's test it. So I've started the app and opened Loghead. This is an emulator that runs API level 23, so it's below Oreo. And now I'm gonna send 3 intents. A, AB, ABC. We can see onCreate, onHandleWork. Now the first intent is running through its loop with the input A. And when it's finished, we can see onHandleWork again. And now our AB intent. And when this one is finished, the last one runs. And then we can see onDestroy. So the service is not destroyed or recreated again with each intent. Instead, they all get executed sequentially, one after another, and then the service automatically stops itself. Because this is basically just a normal intent service. Now let's run it on an API level above Oreo. This is API level 28. So this time it should run as a job. A, AB, ABC. And we can see it looks pretty much the same. onCreate, onHandleWork. It runs through its loop. Because if we are not in low memory situations and the device is not indoors, it basically runs immediately, just like a normal intent service. But in some situations this will get deferred and take a bit longer than a normal service. But in most cases the JobIntentService should be what you need if you used intent services before. So again, you can find a link to the code for this example in the description box below and play around with it. And if this video was helpful, please leave a like. Take care.